Hey friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. You know, I've been a Mustang owner most of my adult life. I've had over a dozen of these things, from vintage Mustangs all the way up through newer models, so I do know my way around the pony car just a little bit. The 2015 Mustang, when it arrived, was a big deal because with all of its design improvements, it's supposed to be the best Mustang ever. Now, I have test driven this car quite a few times on brief occasions, both the EcoBoost and the GT. This EcoBoost here, this is the first time I've actually had an entire week to spend with the car, living with it, taking it out to my favorite mountain roads and seeing what it's all about. So here's what I found out. The 2015 Mustang was the long-awaited replacement for the last generation pony car, which had been around since 2005. While rumored it was going to lose the retro look and get vastly more modern and perhaps change for global tastes, that isn't what happened at all. Instead, what arrived was a more modern take on the retro style that's made the Mustang an icon in the first place. It's gotten some ribbing for looking like a Fusion coupe, and that's a fair criticism. Luckily, most agree the Fusion itself isn't a bad-looking car. The 2015 Mustang is fractionally smaller than the one it replaces, losing nearly 2 inches in width and an inch in height. Overall, though, it looks and feels just as much a tank as it's always been, and in the process, it actually gained some weight. Our tester here came with the EcoBoost Performance package, which brings the glossy black 19-inch wheels and summer rubber. The package also deletes the rear spoiler, but you can option to put it back on. Not sure why they configured it that way. The look will continue into 2016 with little or no change, other than the fact you can get non-black wheels with the performance packages if you don't like them. If you do like black, however, a new appearance package will give you a black roof and other trim elements to add to the wheels. Inside the 2015 Mustang is where this pony rides like nothing that's come before it. Our premium trim grade cabin was further enhanced with the Premier Trim and Accent group. This added improved trims on the door panels and dash, red accent stitching, and special turned aluminum paneling. Ours was also optioned with the Recaro leather seats, which are manual in adjustment. They raise the standard of grip on your body for those who really plan to take their car out hunting, but come at a cost which we'll get to in a moment. The rear seat is but a check mark on a spec sheet. Like most Mustangs that have come before this one, it's for small kids at best. If you plan to force your workmates in there to drive them to lunch one day, they're going to want to drive themselves next time. Looking down the console and up onto the center stack, it's a pleasant thing as it's very well conceived. Ford had said the design was aircraft inspired. Not sure what that means here, but it looks good and the controls are very well laid out. The extra gauges with the performance package are a nice touch too. With the premium trim grade, you get the full-size touchscreen infotainment system with My Ford Touch. That system is replaced for 2016 with Sync 3, which promises to be better. Here, we also had the Shaker Pro audio system and the voice-activated navigation optioned. The audio system is good overall, but not audiophile material. It gets loud, but can be thrashy at volume. There's a small place on the center console to put your smartphone and both a USB and auxiliary port to go along with Bluetooth connectivity. The instrument cluster's design reaches into 1967, but has a nice modern center screen to make that all okay. The steering wheel's a nice piece too, with more controls crammed into it than most automakers would dare. It works well though, and it's easy to navigate for infotainment as well as the instrument cluster information display. Our technology score comes in at 4 out of 5 stars, even though I'm not a fan of My Ford Touch. Here, Ford doubled up on the redundant hard controls for most used infotainment features so you don't have to fuss with it, which reduces stress and anger issues immensely. I have to say this is truly the best Mustang interior I've ever seen. The fit and finish is good, the design is good, the technology's great. It's just very well done, but we need to have a conversation about these Recaro seats. If you're thinking of getting these things in a Mustang, think about it very, very good, because they're not for everybody. First of all, make sure you sit in them, make sure you fit in them. If you're over 200 pounds, they just don't fit. I've been a pretty heavy guy before and I've tried to sit in these seats. It just doesn't work. Now right now, I'm 5'10", I'm 165, and I still find them pretty snug, especially right here in the rib cage. They really grab you tight like a fist. Now, if you're taking your car out on the racetrack, if it's a weekend play toy, that's probably okay. But if this is going to be a daily driver, if it's a car you're planning on taking long road trips on, have some caution there when you're thinking about them. Sit in them, try to go drive a car for 30-40 minutes or so and really make sure they're going to work for you. The other thing to consider also is you give up the power adjustment features, you give up the heating and the cooling that come with the standard seats. So just a word of caution there. They're not for everybody. They can be very good. If you're going to track the car, I'd probably get them myself, but if this were going to be a daily driver for me, I'd definitely stick with the stock seats. The trunk is still plenty large for a sports coupe, and those rear seats will fold down in case you want to put larger things in. The opening, however, seems to have gotten smaller than it used to be, something Mustang guys cannot make fun of the Camaro about anymore. If you option the Shaker audio system, make room for its subwoofer as it lives back here. And lastly, under the trunk floor is an emergency inflator instead of a spare tire, which is fine if you have a slow leak, bad if you chop your tire open on a curb. A mini spare can be optioned for $195. Overall, the interior gets 4 out of 5 stars, the comfort level for both the driver and passengers being the deficit here with long-term comfort and lack of adjustment from those Recaro seats, plus the rear seat, which is really not for people at all. Under the hood is where all the attention's been for this car, the first turbocharged 4-cylinder engine in a Mustang for decades. The 2.3-liter direct-injected EcoBoost 4 delivers up an impressive Ford-size 310 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque. It's available with both a 6-speed automatic and 6-speed manual transmission, which is what our tester came equipped with. I've tested both transmissions before, and in my opinion, the manual is the best for this engine. So there's no question that this EcoBoost engine offers up some horsepower. It actually is fast enough that you can call it quick. And of course, it is very comparable with what you would get with the V6. But with this engine, you get a little bit more of a sporting character, and you can get better fuel economy. Now, I guess the big thing is it's really hard to look at this engine without putting it in context to the V8. This is because, at least for me personally, the Mustang has always been about a V8. And so anything but that, it's different, okay? So if you're somebody who's looking at buying one of these things, obviously if you're considering the EcoBoost, go drive it, really feel it out, because it's completely different than well, a V6 or a V8. It definitely has its own sound, it has its own character. And the other thing to really consider is the fuel economy. The EcoBoost engines can give very good fuel economy. As the window sticker says, if you really lay into the power, they can drink gas just as much as a big V8. And fuel economy was the catch here. The EPA rates the 2015 Mustang EcoBoost at 22 mpg city, 31 mpg highway, and 26 mpg combined. In my week with it, I worked hard to reach 21 mpg combined on its required premium fuel. If there's any downside with the EcoBoost aside its thirst, it's that it can display higher than desirable levels of noise, vibration, and harshness at idle and in mid-range acceleration. Thus, our powertrain rating here comes in at 4 out of 5 stars. The chassis is the sea change that most Mustang aficionados are talking about. For decades past its prime, the Mustang had that solid rear axle which everyone except the bean counters at Ford and drag racers cussed. The modernist finally went out and gave us a proper independent rear suspension. In the move, the Mustang also got a dual ball joint suspension up front, which gives it more room for larger brakes, but also dials in more favorable variations in caster and camber when turning in, which net improved grip and steering feel. One of the very first things I wanted to do when I got this car was go straight to the Apache Trail, which is one of my favorite mountain roads because this one is rough. It's a great place to test these cars and see how well the suspension handles less than smooth pavement. And this is important for the Mustang because it used to always have a solid rear axle, and well, to me that's always been akin to bringing combat boots to a dance, especially when you're trying to enjoy a back road that isn't perfect like a racetrack in terms of smoothness. So what would always happen with the solid axle or the live axle is on these tight corners with rough pavement, that axle would dance and skate. It would just be all roobly-boo all over the place. Never any fun. And what I'm finding out is as I power out of some of these tight, rough curves, it's just got a nice plant, a nice grip, and that's something completely new for the Mustang. Completely new. The other benefit to this tight, rough road is I also get to see how well sorted the steering is here. A lot of times when I bring a car up here, I get kicked back through the steering. I get a little bit of rattling in the steering column. Sometimes the suspension even rattles, and I'm glad to say that's not happening here. It is a bit rough, obviously, and I'm getting a few rattles and shakes around here, but when it comes to the steering and the suspension, it is tight as can be. Now that I'm on the more smoother portions of my favorite mountain road here, I have to say this car is a pure joy. This thing handles so well. It's so refined. It really is exactly what Mustang enthusiasts for decades have tried to achieve by modifying their cars with suspension kits, expensive shocks, better springs, roll bars, even in some cases putting an independent suspension in their cars. A retrofit. This is what they've been trying to get to. This is a car that, while it isn't a BMW 3 Series, I really think that it offers up the same kind of finesse, the same kind of grip and agility up here on a windy mountain road that, well, that those cars have always been known for. It's got a light flingability. The steering has just an absolutely wonderful feel to it, and you can adjust the steering. You can go mild, medium, all the way up to a stiff sport track style. The 2015 Mustang also comes with a drive mode selector which allows for normal, sport, track, and snow settings. Modes change up the steering feel along with throttle input, transmission shifting with automatics, and the stability and traction control settings. All these are differences you can feel. The performance package had larger brakes and quite stiff settings for the springs and shocks to go along with the summer tires. It rode rough and could be harsh, but overall, the chassis earns 5 of 5 stars here. As I said, it's truly one of the best yet under a Mustang. Quality feels a metric that, like most of our scoring, can be subjective. That said, in our week with the Mustang, a number of body fit and alignment gaps were seen, and the interior had its share of intermittent rattles and squeaks, earning it a 4 of 5 score in this area. When it comes to safety, the IIHS has not yet tested the 2015 Mustang in their full battery of tests to be eligible for the top safety pick rating or not. It has been tested for the moderate overlap crash test, in which it earned a good rating, as well as in the head restraint and seat performance areas. Rounding it up for the 2015 Mustang EcoBoost, I gotta say I really do believe that Ford has produced the best Mustang they've ever built. Pretty much every measure has been improved over the last generation model. Now, looking at this one, let's talk about the fuel economy. I got 21 mpg this week, and that's feeding it premium fuel. It's required. The thing is, when you have the small turbocharged engine, you get power or you get fuel economy. You rarely get them both at the same time. Now, as we look at the price, we've got just under $40,000 here on a near fully loaded EcoBoost Mustang. So when I look at the price and the fuel economy, what starts coming to my head is Mustang GT, and let some of those options go. Just my own personal preference, but I look at that price and I think if I'm spending that much money, I want the V8. And honestly, I don't think the fuel economy would be that much different. So that plays into the value here, which comes in at 4 stars for the week. And when you add it up with all the other marks that we've already talked about, we're at 4 stars for the week overall. I'm Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. I hope you enjoyed the ride. Well, folks, if you like the test drive you just saw, click on the link right there. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's always something different. You just never know what you're going to get here. Just like here in the desert, it is the middle of July and summertime. It's 110 degrees outside, and I've got thunder, lightning, and rain. Hell and damnation falling around me. Anyway, folks, we test drive 1, sometimes 2 cars every week. Plus, we do a video almost every single day, news features, and Motoring Monday, so stay tuned.